Hey everybody, Adam Davidson, RadCast for Monday, September 11, 2023. I don't remember what I was doing 21 years ago or 20 years ago on this day, but I definitely remember what I was doing 22 years ago on this day, taking in the information of the Twin Towers being, of course, brutally destroyed by a terrorist act. And I think those of us who were there remember, and those of us who are too young, like my kids, don't entirely get it, much in the same way that I didn't entirely get Vietnam, and yet today is a day of mourning and loss and remembrance for the United States of America and really for the world. Everything changed that day. It was on that day between New York City and Washington and Shanksville that we lost 2,977 lives. The world is not the same, not just in terms of loss of life, but loss of freedom, loss of a lot of the things that just used to, I don't even know how to explain it. I bet many of you could explain a pre 9/11 versus a post 9/11 world. We could probably get into a long conversation about it, those of us who are around for it. And I was just thinking, like, today is a good day to acknowledge that and to remember that and to even mourn and to think about the way that God comforts us in our loss. A lot of times we want God to just protect us from pain, and quite honestly, he probably does in ways we don't realize. But in this world, Jesus said, you'll have trouble. In a world where we are free to choose God, there has to be the freedom of choice and therefore the freedom that leads to consequences, good and bad. So what Jesus does is, instead of removing our freedom so that we're just robot animatronics that always do the right thing, in our freedom, he gives us incredible grace and treats our wounds, our hurts, our losses. This is what it says in 2 Corinthians 1, 3-4. Paul writes, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our trouble, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." Now, I know that's kind of convoluted language, and if you had to choose a word of the day, it would be comfort. But the idea is that what God gives to us in our mourning is exactly what we need, which is comfort. But that comfort isn't meant to stay with us, that it's meant to be pressed on to a broken and hurting world, that there's something about being comforted by God that gives us the capacity to comfort others. And so when we experience loss, we gain something. And when we gain something, we have something to give to those who have lost. I've charted it out as such. We lose something, and yet, we have this moment of mourning and loss, like say the loss of freedom or the loss of lives with 9/11, and yet we gain something in that loss, and it's the comfort of God. And in finding that comfort, we are able to then, as the one who has gained, give something to the one who has lost. And so really, if you think about it, back in 9/11, 2001, 22 years ago, there was probably somebody in your life that spoke comfort, brought comfort, a pastor, a friend, a parent, somebody to give you perspective on what in the world was going on. And if you think about it, it was their comfort, their reaction that helped you to gauge your reaction and to find comfort in that. So just thinking about this incredible cycle of how God is healing the world through you and I. So the thing to do today is to remember and to reflect. And in that reflection, even to mourn. We have lost something. The world is not the same. And kids, you may not fully understand it, and that's okay. I don't judge you for that because I don't fully understand World War II or Vietnam. I can read about it and have some understanding of it, but I don't know what it was like because I wasn't there. I'm not that old. But I do know this. In our reflection, we find Jesus. Jesus who says to us, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." So today, dear friends, as you remember, may you find the comfort of Jesus, and may you even find that as he comforts you, that you have the capacity to then comfort others. And this comfort is transferable. Someone says, "I experienced this loss." And then someone else can say, "Well, what was that like? Mine was different, but it really wasn't," because there are all these similarities between losses. I close with this. A good friend of ours lost her husband. And so Brittany, who has never, I know we just said she's a good friend, but she's like a Facebook friend, like she's a connection of a connection. Brittany and this person have never met, and yet they have such an incredible connection over their shared loss of losing their husband. And what they experience and the comfort that they share can only be explained by the healing presence and power of our good, good Father. So just something to think about today. You've experienced loss. God can always comfort you. And then that comfort can be passed on to somebody else today as we remember and every day. That's RadCast.